Morning, folks. Kick off the brand new year with a new video, and I wanted to start off with a very fast product review of a tipper, and it is this. This is the Los Cabos drumstick. Basically, it's their tipper. It's originally designed with the specifications in mind of Sean McCann, who is the former Bodhran player, singer, guitar player, and general percussionist of Great Big Sea fame. And this was the stick you often saw him using in many live performances and videos and things, and worked with Los Cabos to design this. My original impression was it kind of looks like a baseball bat, and originally, from what I've read in online forum and from what I've got back from Los Cabos, is actually that it was sort of designed around a baseball Louisville Slugger sort of aesthetic. So yeah, and I want to bring out another tipper here, which is one I use a lot when I do double end practice by the comparison, and I want to point out something I think interesting, and that is, of course, the tipper profile. And I don't see a lot of tippers. I had something very similar to this made a number of years ago out of a custom design by Jim Hunter, and I had to change it because of how severe the camphor is. It's more closer to a 90 degree than say this is, which is round by comparison. So I play a lot of smaller sized Bodhran when I'm in pubs or doing sessions or recording. So this doesn't really work very well, this type of profile, on smaller drums. If anything, I think, it sounds not bad, but as a top end player, it sounds like it's lost some of its richness of tone. So that's why I've always tended to go with designs more like this. Instead. For some reason, they just seem to work better on the smaller sized drums, in my opinion. There seems to be a better relationship between the surface area striking a smaller skin. You don't get that same pop effect, not quite that same pop effect that you normally get with a rod tipper or something similar to that. Where I do find these tippers very, very useful are on the big drums. The 18 inches, the larger ones, the 16s, the 18s, the 20s, the 22s. And I think the reason why they're so much better on the bigger drums is that on a smaller drum you have a more immediate slap back, so to speak, of sound coming back from the tuning rim back to the center of the drum after you've hit it. So it's coming back much faster. And I think it cancels out some of the medium frequencies on tippers that are more sharply ended, or rather sharply chamfered in that sort of way. But on a great big surface like this one, something happens when you use a ball end. And that sometimes ball ends, depending on the type of wood, tend to absorb way too much of the mid and high lines. So you end up losing a whole lot of sound variance on a larger skin. And you need something that's a little more sharp-ended. Now you could do that by having a more narrow tipper, or you can do it by doing something like this. Usually people go with the narrow tipper, but the narrow tipper doesn't have that same sort of surface area for striking flat hits, which in some cases are preferable for a lot of players. So on a great big drum like this makes much more sense. And I think it makes more sense because of that relationship between the tipper profile and the size of the frame drum itself. So I think that's just straight up something I've noticed while trying to use this on a bunch of different drums. Smaller drums don't really seem to like these sorts of things unless you're playing a lot of flat percussive on the back. You can get the same effect and probably even get a more rich and full effect on a bigger drum. So It seems to me that tippers like this work better on bigger drums and maybe were designed for bigger drums. Number two thing about it is the balance of it. And you see I have my elastics at the 4/5 hold, because that to me is my perfect center of gravity. And a mistake, I think, in this is that this is longer to the center, this is fatter. And I think what they tried to do was find a center of gravity. And the problem with that, when I didn't have these elastics on, was that when I was spinning it with the short end down, the fatter end down, it felt more natural, but it felt more natural to someone who plays like this, because you're not getting the extra wobble. But if you're someone who plays more like Sean McCann, which is more of a spinning technique, it's so biased to the bottom that the top doesn't come back very quickly. There's something odd about that. There's just this sensation of, like, it doesn't hit. There's a unequal bounce back feel with this, whereas if you're playing straight up, and I'm not very good at this method, I'm shite at it, but it makes a little more sense because you don't need to have that same sort of looseness. You have this, you have your loose wrist and the forearms doing the work. The other thing is that if you do get one of these, you really may just find that you're not happy with it because it feels too light. It feels like there's no balance. The long thin end feels more at home because it feels much better. But there is literally not enough grip here. Everything slides right off. You are pretty much going to need an elastic band set. Now, I tried elasting the center, and it helped a fair bit. Maybe it's because I'm used to the 4/5 grip, maybe not, but one of the big problems I see is that's not the center of this thing. The center of gravity on this thing is not here. For me, it's about here. So that makes all the better. Let's get the proper drum here. Yeah. So, very comfortable. So you can get that same sort of effect of comfort that I normally get when using tippers that are more ball-ended. So what's the benefit of a design like this? Well, I think it suits the bigger drums better. If you're a small drum player and a more percussive style player, maybe that will be okay, but you're certainly going to limit your type of sounds that you are going to expand on using a more rounded tipper. This seems to benefit large scale drums, so 16 being the medium, I'm going to say 18 and over. And probably the most useful way of playing is at the top end sort of stuff. Maybe not best suited for something like this, but if you're someone who's a bottom end player, it actually makes a lot more sense. And Sean McCann's a bottom end player. This is designed to his standards, so it makes more sense. So, pros and cons of this thing. Would I recommend it? I would only really recommend something like this if you're a more percussive style player and have a larger bodied drum. That way you're not using it for something that doesn't feel quite right. Suggested hand holds that I would say, the pen grip makes the most sense. The baby grip, maybe even better, because your baby grip automatically shunts the center of mass. You can do it a bit easier. If you're doing the thumb lock grip, I would suggest keeping it in the 4/5, but making like a little pocket between here and just shoving it into the crotch and playing. That might be okay, but it's hard. This is a small scale tipper by comparison, so you're going to have to experiment if you're a double-ended player and you find that this doesn't make much sense. This just might make more sense. So, there you go. am I going to keep this tipper? Actually, yeah, I found it very useful on drums with thick skins. So my TR head, for example, this 18-inch Bridget drum, for example, this is perfectly suited for that. Would I use it on my smaller ones, my Shane McGrath, my Hedvig Shack core line, my Finnegan Hill drum? No, this isn't going to fit onto it because it doesn't seem to work. It just doesn't make a very good sound. The control's not quite there. But for lots of flatback off of big skins with slower response time, this isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. So, again, Los Cabos, made in Canada. Um, give it a shot. Cost in the store is about $8. So it's not going to break the bank. Though, this was $6.50. And I use it more. So, you be the judge on that. Me, I'm going to keep it, but I'm only going to use it for the large, big drums with heavy skins. So you give it a shot. And if you're out there and you got any interestingly shaped tippers or tippers that are made by larger companies, not specifically by smaller tipper makers and whatnot, let me know. It'd be nice to know about some of the stuff that you find more useful and some of the stuff you don't find more useful. Until next time, Happy New Year, and I'm Alex at Cabos Bodhran. Until next time, bye.